Okay, I'm starting now. All right, thank you for joining. I appreciate your patience. Okay, today we'll be talking about the theories and culture of entrepreneurship. We're talking about the theories and culture of entrepreneurship. But we'll start with the theories for now. All right, there are several theories that carry or covers entrepreneurship. But before we start talking about that theory, it's important to run through some of the things we have talked about in the past. We talked about entrepreneurship generally as a concept. We talked about entrepreneurship as a process. As a process, by definition, we tried to define it in several ways. We gave the definition of several authors. We said entrepreneurship is the process of uncovering and developing an opportunity to create value through innovation and seizing that opportunity without regards to either resources, that is human or capital resources, or the location of the entrepreneur in a new or existing company. Okay, so these are some of the ways we talked about entrepreneurship as a process. And we said the entrepreneur is a person. The entrepreneur is a person. So we discussed that we have the entrepreneur and we also have the intrapreneur. And we highlighted some of the advantages as well as the differences between them in our previous class. So today we'll be talking about the theories of entrepreneurship. Theories of entrepreneurship. So let's go straight to it. Now, the functionality of an entrepreneur is based on some established theories, and they are one, the economic theory of entrepreneurship, and we have the psychological theory of entrepreneurship, and we have the sociological theory of entrepreneurship and other theories. We're going to be talking about some sub divisions of these theories as we keep explaining them. Just pay attention. In case you can't hear me or you're having any difficulty, go to the chat and put up a chat, okay? Or question and answers, just type something. I will see it and I'll read it. If you can't hear me, type it there, all right? Apart from that, just mute yourself and we'll be good. All right, now let's start with the first theory, which is the economic theory of entrepreneurship. Economic theory of entrepreneurship. Well, of course, we know when you hear economic, what is it saying? What does economic depict? It means when you try to make money in a particular way. When you try to make money in a particular way. So the economic theory of entrepreneurship links economic conditions and incentives to a risk-reward equation, right? The risk is all you invest or sacrifice. The reward is the returns on your sacrifice in such a situation or such equation. And when we say it's all the economic conditions and incentives to a risk-reward equation, guiding the decision to pursue a venture. This is the theory that links these things together. So the economic theory is assumed that, or tries to assume that entrepreneurs organize resources such as labor, materials, assets to create greater value, drive innovation, and introduce new changes. For what reason? So as to complete the risk-reward equation. That is what I put in and what I get out of this venture. So these theories, the economic theory is linked to these economic conditions and the incentives thereof. Now, what are the features of this economic theory of entrepreneurship? The first is that entrepreneurship and economic growth take place when economic conditions are favorable. That's what that theory is postulating. That once the return is good, entrepreneurs are likely to put in the effort. So entrepreneurship and economic growth takes place when it's likely to take place. Entrepreneurs are likely to go into such ventures when economic conditions are favorable. The second feature of economic theory of entrepreneurship is that economic incentives are the main motivation for entrepreneurial activities. So any person that's going into an entrepreneurial venture must have some incentive, an economic incentive he's looking towards, all right, to get from such a entrepreneurial activity. The third one is economic incentives include taxation policies, that is the economic activities incentives attached to this theory include taxation policies, industrial policies, source of finances and raw materials, infrastructural availability, investment and marketing opportunities thereof, access to information about market conditions, the technology that's available, and so on and so forth. So, economic factors that encourage or discourage entrepreneurship. Some economic factors that encourage or discourage entrepreneurship are one, taxation policy. Let us explain this a bit. If you go into a particular business and the taxation regime existing at that particular time in such a location is so exorbitant or harsh, the tendency is that you may not continue in your economic venture. So, but if the taxation policy is friendly and easy to understand, you find out that a lot of people will continue, or their entrepreneurial ventures activities will be sustained for a longer period. So another factor that encourages entrepreneurial activities is industrial policies, policy guiding how you go into industry, establishing one, running one, and so on. It can either encourage or discourage entrepreneurship. Another economic factor is the ease or easy availability of raw material. How do you get your raw material? If it's hard to get, entrepreneurship venture may be cut short. If it's easy to get, your entrepreneurship venture is encouraged. So this is a key factor. Another factor is the ease with which you access finance on a favorable term. Every institution, every economic institution or venture will require financing or refinancing at various points in time. Sometimes you need more money for importation, for raw materials, and that's what we call financial need of an enterprise. Ease of accessing it can encourage or discourage entrepreneurship. Then we also have another factor called access to information about market condition. The market condition is quite important because having produced, having innovated, having created something, it is of essence that you are able to market it and sell. If the access to information about your market condition is not there, this will discourage entrepreneurship. If the market information is available and easy to get, it will encourage entrepreneurship. Then we also have another economic factor referred to as availability of technology and infrastructure. Technology is postulated as the science that enables us to do things, as a science that is used to solve human wants. So it's a technology. So once there's a science available to whatever business venture you are carrying out, and that venture is aimed at solving a particular human want through either goods or services, that will encourage entrepreneurship. Or if it is not available, it will discourage entrepreneurship. We also have marketing opportunities. Of course, it's similar to access to information to market condition. Market opportunities are the ability to get a place or marketing, a place to market your product, to sell off your product. Such opportunities can encourage or discourage entrepreneurship depending on its availability. The economic theory of entrepreneurship is subdivided into three, namely the classic theory, the neoclassic theory, classic theory or classical theory, and the Australian market process. Let's explain them a bit. Now, the classical theory, what is it all about? The classical theory shaped by the British or the Britain Industrial Revolution, which happened in 1700s to the 1830s. All right, this is the time during which this Industrial Revolution happened. This classical theory emphasizes free trade and specialization. It tries to highlight the entrepreneur's role in the production and distribution equation in a competitive market. All right. Now, however, this can occur in several ways. Whatever happens in this instance, critics have said that or have argued that the classic theorists overlooked the classic theorists overlooked the dynamic change or changes that brought about that were brought about by entrepreneurs during the industrial age. Of course, during that period, the entrepreneurs initiated a whole lot of change. But the classical theory has been criticized in that scholars have said that the theorists overlooked the dynamic the changes brought about the entrepreneurs during the industrial age. Well, that is one of the criticism of this particular classical theory. The classical theory emphasizes free trade and specialization, and it tries highlighting the entrepreneur's role in production and distribution in a competitive market. While the neoclassic theory was developed in response to those arguments that were made against the classical theories. Okay, the neoclassic theory model came to respond to those arguments that were made against the classical theories. And those response to classical theories views economic phenomena as pure exchange within a closed system, focusing on participants, occurrences, and the impact of exchange. Now, the classical theory says or postulates or holds that entrepreneurs' role is primarily in production and distribution in a competitive market, and tries to emphasize free market and specialization. That is what the theory says. The entrepreneurship is concerned about this particular stuff. It's concerned about free trade, it's concerned about specialization, and the entrepreneur's role is in production and distribution in a competitive market. Finish. But people criticize that this is not all what the entrepreneurs is about. That is why the neoclassic theory model was brought about to respond to the classical theory postulations. And now the neoclassic theory postulates that the economic theory goes beyond just what the classical theory says or postulates. It encompasses or views economic phenomena as pure exchange within a closed system, focusing on participants in that system, occurrences within that system, and the impact of exchange. It emphasizes the role of diminishing marginal return in fostering entrepreneurship. Authors have said this, all right? Now, this theory was criticized. Criticism of this model include that it tends to neglect individual entrepreneurial uniqueness in the entire equation. It tends to neglect that. Now, another criticism is the failure to account for future value of innovation and its inadequate representation of market complexities and uncertainties. These are some of the criticism of the neoclassic theory. Now, we also have the Australian market process. The limitation of the neoclassic model led to the development of the Australian market process, which was influenced by Sean Peters in 1934, which focused on human actions within a knowledge-based economy. Sean Peters saw entrepreneurship as with enterprises driving innovation and market motions. The economics school of entrepreneurship examines the relationship between economic conditions and incentives to evaluate the risk-reward equation. We mentioned that before for potential ventures, viewing entrepreneurs as merchants, adventurers, and employers. It highlights economic factors such as taxation, exchange rate that influence entrepreneurial growth and decline, and it divided into classical, neoclassical, and Australian models. Now, another theory that must be taken into consideration is the psychological theory of entrepreneurship. Wow. Someone says my voice is repeating. I hope it's not network. Check if for you on your own side, check if your Zoom is open and your YouTube is open at the same time, it will be echoing. They will be interfering. So try and adjust. Just use only one at a time. All right. Okay. Now, another theory we want to talk about is the psychological theory of entrepreneurship. Psychological theory of entrepreneurship focus on the traits. That is the traits that one is born with, the motives for which one is going into entrepreneurship, and the personality as key factors driving entrepreneurial spirit. The personality of the entrepreneur as key factors driving entrepreneurial spirit. This particular theory tries to emphasize personal characteristics such as the personality traits of the entrepreneur, the need for achievement of the entrepreneur, the locus of control, which are linked to entrepreneurial inclination. Now, the theory suggests that entrepreneurs possess unique values and attitudes towards work and life, with psychological attributes distinguishing successful entrepreneurs from the other. Now, this theory thinks that some entrepreneurs may be born unique, all right? That is, they have some unique traits within them, that they are innate, that were born with them. Those traits were innate in them. So let's see how the psychological theory of entrepreneurship breaks it down. Now, the theories under psychological theory of entrepreneurship includes the personality trait. Let's try to explain this. The need for achievement, the locus of control, the psychodynamic model, the risk-taking propensity. Let's see how this applies to entrepreneurship. Now, when we say personality trait, what are we trying to say? The personality trait theory defines personality trait as stable qualities exhibited by individuals in most situations. These inborn traits, such as the vision of the person, enthusiasm of the person, optimism of the person, flexibility of the person, open-mindedness, and versatility of the person, naturally predisposes such an individual who is an assumed entrepreneur to entrepreneurship. So the theory believes that these traits is what triggers or really makes one entrepreneurial. Meaning, if you are born with it, you'll be entrepreneurial. If you are not born with it, you will not be predisposed to be entrepreneurial. That's what the personality trait theory is talking about. Now, there's also the need for achievement model of the psychological theory of entrepreneurship. The need for achievement theory here, proposed by McClelland in 1961, asserts that humans are driven by a desire to succeed. They are driven by a desire to accomplish and to excel, meaning that entrepreneurs in particular, which is a subset of humans, are motivated by this need for personal achievement and fulfillment. So that drive is going to trigger them to be entrepreneurial. Now, what's the observation and criticism of this model? This theory has been criticized as a result of the following points. The first is that the theory is contradictory and has limited evidence to what it is postulating. Number two is that it has no direction for causality, that is, something may have caused what the person is exhibiting. Number three, the theory is more applicable to the Western culture, where personal achievement is more appreciated as compared to other cultures from other sub-regions of the world. Another criticism, and the fourth criticism of that, is that this theory is limited only to business people, while other people also show that behavior. And that is a critical observation of this theory. Now, we also have another part of the psychological theory we call the locus of control. Locus of control, it was introduced by Julian Rother in the 1950s. This locus of control refers to an individual's perception of the causes behind events in their life. For example, every single person may have an idea why something is happening to them in their life. So that's having that idea about why or what causes a particular event in your life is what we call locus of control. It distinguishes between internal, or we can distinguish. It is important we can distinguish between internal control orientation, where outcomes are believed to depend on personal actions, an external control orientation where outcomes are seen as influenced by external factors. So the entrepreneurial success is viewed as a combination of personal abilities and external support, with the theory suggesting that an individual's belief in controlling their destiny can either be internal or external, meaning that there are certain things he will do and he will succeed. And there are certain factors from without him, that's from outside, that will come upon him and he will succeed. So that's balance of the two is what we're talking about under this particular concept. Now, the internal locus of control simply means that individuals with an internal locus of control believes that they are able to control life events because they feel that most of the things that will make them control is coming from within them. External locus of control, individuals with an external locus of control believe that life's events are the result of external factors such as chance, luck, or fate that may come upon them, talking about in its in summary. Now, we also have the psychodynamic model. This model was propounded by Keats de Veris. The model is concerned with how people tend to be self-employed and become successful because of their troubled childhood, all right? Now, it's called psychodynamic model. In troubled childhood, for those that have troubled childhood, children tend to be abused with low self-esteem as a result of a troubled childhood, lack of confidence as a result of this. At this point, the individual grows in such an environment, or the individual that grows in such an environment have reserved wishes towards those in a controlled environment. So you see that it affects them, how they behave. Now, what is the observation about this particular model? This theory explains the behavior of extreme categories of people living out the rest of the category. So you take those that are at an extreme case of life where they were abused, they were troubled, and you leave those that were okay. And it doesn't give us quite a stable balance. Another observation about this model or theory is that some people with similar background do not show innovative rebelliousness. Some tend to be criminals and or drug addicts or alcoholics. So they don't tend to exhibit the same outcome as the theory is talking about. So these are some of the criticism that comes with this theory, that a childhood or something that has happened or something that is concerned with how someone is someone's childhood tends to affect the success of that person in business. Okay, now we also have the risk-taking theory. This theory contends about one's willingness to accept risk. The theory says that people who are more likely to accept risk and taking chances are more likely to being self-employed than those who do not take risk at all. So the theory is talking about being risk averse or risk drawn to risk rather than being risk averse. What is the criticism of this theory? One of the criticism of this theory is that people tend to say that they take the profit and pass the risk to someone else. Another criticism or observation is that people who take risk normally take a calculated risk and do not gamble. Number 3 is that people who are successful in business are moderate risk takers. And then number 4, observation of this particular theory or model is that risk not only a financial loss. Risk is not only a financial loss, but also image loss or loss of relationship with other people in the society. So you can risk such also. Now, there's a sociological theory of entrepreneurship. This particular theory is the third of the major entrepreneurship theories we want to discuss today. Sociological enterprises focuses on the social context, and authors have identified 4 social contexts that relate to entrepreneurial opportunities. Now, one of the contexts is the social network in which one is operating. The second is life course stage. Where are you in the course of life? Number three is the ethnic identification. Number four is the population ecology. Let's explain them so you get to understand what we mean by them as it relates to sociological theory of entrepreneurship. The first is social network. Social networks focuses on building trustworthy social relationships, emphasizing that entrepreneurs should avoid exploiting others for success. All right, meaning that when you form a good social network, it is a symbiotic thing because you rely on them, they rely on you, and you'll be successful. But don't exploit others for success. The second is the life course stage. This involves analyzing an individual's life experience, which shapes their thoughts and actions and motivating them to pursue meaningful entrepreneurial ventures. Now, when you analyze someone's life experience, it tells you where they are and where they are likely to go next. And the sociological theory of entrepreneurship says that at this particular uh, this particular life course stage helps to motivate those that we analyze their life experience so that we can know where they are going or make sense or make a meaningful sense of the entrepreneurial venture going forward. The third is the ethnic identification. The ethnic identification highlights how one's sociological background can act as a push factor towards entrepreneurship. Like I tried to explain to some of my students, the ethnicity from which you originate from has a way of influencing your entrepreneurial drive. There is a particular ethnic group where the people are prone to doing business, and that can affect their entrepreneurial drive. And that ethnic identity tend to follow them or help them in the course of how they embrace entrepreneurship. And there are others that are from ethnic groups that are not into business, and that colors how they see opportunities and take it. The fourth sociological theory, fourth part of the sociological theory of entrepreneurship is the population ecology. Population ecology emphasizes the role of environmental factors such as politics, legislation, customers, employees, and competition in determining the survival and success of a new venture. All these are sociological factors or sociological theory of entrepreneurship. Now, sociological theory of entrepreneurship views social culture as a key driver with entrepreneurs fulfilling societal role expectation, which is shaped by religious beliefs, taboos, customs. Key sociological models supported by empirical evidence include the inheritance of enterprise culture across generations, social marginality, and the influence of ethnicity. Now, what this is all saying is that the social background of where one comes from, like his religion, his belief, the customs, are key sociological factors that can help you predict the societal role of an entrepreneur or predict the key drivers, that's the things that are propelling an entrepreneur to either fulfill his function as an entrepreneur in the entrepreneurship process. Now, what are the assumptions of sociological theory of entrepreneurship? The first assumption is that entrepreneurship is likely to get a boost in a particular social culture. Social culture is part of what boosts entrepreneurship. If your parents were entrepreneurs, businessmen, calculated risk takers, you are likely to be able to make calculated risk to do business like they do, because that social environment you find yourself will rub off on you. Another assumption of sociological theory of entrepreneurship is society's values, religious belief, customs, taboos. They influence the behavior of individuals in the society. No doubt, we know that where one is from affects how one behaves. The third is the entrepreneur is a role performer. Is a role performer according to the role expectation by the society. Every society expects you to do one or two things. And that is the third assumption of sociological theory of entrepreneurship. Every activity or every society has people that function in various aspects of the society. Every society. Now, every activity carried out by human beings are surrounded by certain cultural values and ethics. All right. And these ethics depict the behavior of certain groups or people. At least when you see some people, you know where they are from by the way they behave, by the ethics they observe. Like there are some Asians and the ethics they observe, you just know where they are from. So these make up what you can easily just guess the tribe of the people by seeing their behaviors or their ethics. All right. Now, these cultural values, or we can call them values or cultural values, are also extended to different professions, because you see some people from several areas, regions, and on how they behave. You can easily tell when you meet them in a professional setting that this is this person, and their values also affect how they perform in certain professions. So every profession has its culture, and this is not that different from entrepreneurs. In today's session, what we'll be talking about, we'll be learning about the different cultural values and the behavior of an entrepreneur in such an environment. Now, culture is the way of life of a people. Culture is the way of life of a people. Culture is a hot slogan among corporate and entrepreneurial companies alike. It's what everyone is striving for, what brings on the loyalty, what attracts and keeps the really remarkable employee is how they fit into the organizational culture. Now, the term applies to individuals. Culture applies to individuals. It applies to a team. It applies to the entire organization, or we call it organizational culture. Now, culture refers to the attitude and value, which in the case of entrepreneurship may be linked with autonomy, creativity, and sense of responsibility. This is what we refer to soft skills: autonomy, creativity, and sense of responsibility. We call that soft skills, and so on. It also refers to entrepreneurial knowledge and skills and managerial competencies, which have to be acquired. And these ones is what we refer to as hard skills, hard skills. Now, the hard aspect of culture applies to entrepreneurship, because without them, an entrepreneurial culture would not develop into a tangible act. The argument on traditionalistic culture and entrepreneurship is based on 2 points. The first, traditional societies provide more social support, helping entrepreneurs manage the insecurity and uncertainties of business, especially in low and medium GDP countries where institutional support is underdeveloped. Now, look at what we mean by this. When we say traditional society provides more support or social support and helps entrepreneurs manage their insecurities, we are saying that in contrast to modern society, that is, societies that have changed, has seemed to have improved. Now, the contrast is in low income, low GDP countries and high GDP countries. Now, low and medium GDP countries have institutional support that are underdeveloped, so they can't support entrepreneurs properly. But high GDP countries offer more alternative avenues for survival, reducing their reliance of the entrepreneur on cultural support systems. So in such environment, the traditionalistic culture may not work, but in low and medium GDP countries, the traditionalistic culture will work, because the society can provide you social their insecurities and uncertainties of their business. Now, the meaning of GDP means gross domestic product. Gross domestic product means the production of all the entire production of goods and services within a particular country. Now, the second argument on traditionalistic culture is that in societies where high power distance, that is society with high power distance, entrepreneurship may be the only way for low status individuals to escape their predefined roles. To escape their predefined roles. All right. Now, this is evident in countries like China and India, where entrepreneurship allowed marginalized individuals to rise above their societal status. What do we mean by this? Now, the next question I think you may ask is, what is the meaning of power distance? You know, what is the meaning of power distance? Now, power distance refers to the degree to which members of a society accept and expect an unequal distribution of power within their culture. Essentially measuring how comfortable people are with hierarchical structure, that is those people within the hierarchy, and the gap between those with authority and those without authority, how they relate. A high power distance indicates a greater acceptance of inequality. That means everybody just accepts the fact that those people are higher than us, they are high up there. We are low, we are down here. That greater acceptance is what we refer to as high power distance. While a low power distance means people strive for more equality in power dynamics. So you don't see the class system play out so much, differentiating people, and you see the gap between the highs and the lows in the society so elaborately distinguished. So in countries like we said, in countries with high power distance, entrepreneurship may be the only way for low status individuals to escape their predefined role, because in such places, your role as a poor person or a person that is low on the economic header has been defined and everybody treats you like that. So entrepreneurship can help you overcome that. Now let's talk about the cultural dimensions which may influence entrepreneurship across different societies. The cultural dimensions. Okay. Now, the cultural dimensions, I will run through this quickly and as quickly as I can so we can go to the next thing we want to talk about today. Now, the first is in-group collectivism. The second is humane orientation. The third is power distance. The fourth is performance orientation. The fifth is future orientation. And the sixth is uncertainty avoidance, which may influence entrepreneurship across different societies. Now, for now, you may look at these things and they sound so high and look as if they are so hard to understand. But let me break them down a bit. Now, remember, we say these are cultural dimensions which may influence entrepreneurship across different society. When we say, like for the first one, which is in-group collectivism, collectivism simply just means how people work together. Collectivism, how we work together. So in each group, is your society a society that is working together, or are they individualistic? So we can say collectivism versus individualism. Collectivism being that the society does things in unison, and individualism means that the society does everybody for yourself. Everybody does things individually. Okay? Now, having said that, in a society where you have in-group collectivism, what is the situation? How does it work? In-group collectivism measures the level of pride, loyalty, and cohesiveness individuals express within their families and groups. So such societies with high in-group collectivism emphasize strong personal relationships, such as in China and in maybe Korea. Instead of relying on institutional support, they rely on these personal relationships in the group. So while in group collectivism, in-group collectivism is often seen as negatively related to entrepreneurship due to its focus on group goals and the individualistic nature of entrepreneurship. There are opposing views at this level. So you see, we criticize this group collectivism. Why? Because it has is negatively related to entrepreneurship. Why is it so? Due to the fact that it focuses on group goals and individualistic nature of entrepreneurship. So there are opposing views at that level. No. Now, some argue that collectivism provides valuable social support and resources for entrepreneurs, especially in low and medium GDP countries where families and communities can help each other to mitigate risk and provide security if business fails. So this is where collectivism and individualism comes to bear. Now, another dimension of that affects entrepreneurship is the humane orientation. What does humane orientation mean? It refers to the degree to which society values and rewards fairness, friendliness, generosity, and kindness. So when you have a society with high humane orientation, individuals are supported materially, financially, and socially within their close circle. And there is a strong sense of compassion and conformity within the community. So with, of course, the opposite will come with the opposite outcomes. Now, this orientation can aid entrepreneurship by providing social security and resources in case of failure, allowing the entrepreneurs to feel supported and secure when starting and developing their business. The third one is power distance. We've talked about power distance before. So I'm not going to give much emphasis on that. We say power distance refers to the extent to which members of a society expect and accept unequal power distributions. In a high power distance society, social mobility is limited and social status is tied to established power relationship rather than merit, making it harder for individuals to challenge the status quo. So we see that those that are high up there are there, those that are down here are down here, and everybody maintains his place like that. So entrepreneurial activities are typically low in high power distance countries as their societies resist new initiative and innovations. And unequal distribution of resources makes it difficult for entrepreneurs from low power groups to accept necessary skills, information, and opportunities. So we have the performance orientation. This one refers to the degree to which. Okay, who is speaking? I can hear you. Okay. I think I like this. I was talking about okay, yes, this is where I was. I was talking about performance orientation. I say it refers to the degree to which a society encourages and rewards improvement and excellence. All right. Now, entrepreneurs driven by challenging goals and the desire for rewards are more likely to strive in a society with high performance orientation, leading to increased entrepreneurial activities, especially in high growth and innovation-driven ventures. So when we relate it to high GDP countries, abundant resources therein makes it easy for entrepreneurs to achieve these goals. While in low and medium GDP countries, this scarcity presents more challenges. So performance orientation is positively linked to high quality entrepreneurship with a strong effect in high GDP countries. So let's move to the next, which is okay. Which one is that? Future orientation. Now, future orientation refers to how individuals in a society engage in behaviors like planning for the future, investing in the future, and delaying gratification. So countries with high future orientation focus on anticipating opportunities and planning for future goals. which fosters high quality entrepreneurial activities. However, it can also be tied to uncertainty avoidance. Number 6 here is uncertainty avoidance, where concerns about future problems may hinder our actions, right? So for high growth and innovation, future orientation alone is insufficient. A stable environment
Ịkpazụ ntị atọrọ ụtọ.
Okay, we're talking about entrepreneurial culture. We said culture can be defined as the mix of norms, values, and beliefs shared by a particular community, be it a business community, a cultural or ethnic community, a country, or a geographical region. Okay.
The noise is not even allowing me to understand.
Nduka Florence Ngozi, can you mute yourself? I've tried to mute you, but it's not working. I don't know what you have done there. If you keep making noise, I'll have to kick you out. Okay, we're talking about entrepreneurship culture. And we've talked about what culture is about. We said culture can be defined as, let me see, where are we? Okay. All right, I think this is where we are. Culture can be defined as a mix of the norms and beliefs that are shared by a particular community, be it a business community, a cultural community, or ethnic community, a country, or a geographical region. Now, entrepreneurial culture refers to an organizational culture that embodies entrepreneurial traits such as risk-taking, innovation, and creativity. This culture is linked to positive outcomes, including the generation of new ideas, new businesses, and an enhanced firm performance. We also define culture in terms of value. Now, what do we mean by values? Values can be described as a predisposition to act in a certain way. That is your values. A predisposition to act in a certain way. Now, entrepreneurial cultural attitude. Entrepreneurial cultural attitude is favored by the following set of attitude. Okay, or we can say entrepreneurial culture is favored by the following set of attitudes. The first is business activities are valued. All right. Now, when business activities are valued in a particular environment, entrepreneurial culture is favored. That means it tries to make entrepreneurial culture heightened. Now, when individuals and collective initiatives are highly rated, now entrepreneurial culture can be encouraged. When there is high determination and perseverance are desired, the high determination and perseverance are desired qualities. Such an environment, entrepreneurial culture can be encouraged in such a place. And in such an environment where an equilibrium has been established between security and risk, such risk is acceptable in such an environment, entrepreneurial culture can highly be encouraged, or such environment can have a high cultural attitude. Now, we also have the tensions between stability and change. Once the tension between stability and change is resolved, entrepreneurial cultural attitude is built. Now, a society favoring entrepreneurship, entrepreneurs are role models in such a society. And these entrepreneurs who are not only acceptable but desirable must possess some of these or accept some of these attributes that we have just listed above. Now, what are the elements of entrepreneurship culture? The first is people and empowerment focused. Once entrepreneurship is people and empowerment focused, you know that entrepreneurship culture, that is a key element of entrepreneurship culture. Another key element of entrepreneurship culture is value creation through innovation and change. Another element of entrepreneurship culture is attention to basics. You can't make much progress if you don't pay attention to basics. Hands-on management is another element of entrepreneurship culture. Doing the right thing is another element of entrepreneurship culture. Freedom to grow and to fail is an element of entrepreneurship culture. Commitment and personal responsibility is an element of entrepreneurship culture. And then emphasis on the future and a sense of urgency is an element of entrepreneurship culture. Now let's talk about the components of culture. Now, every society has culture. What are the components of culture? The first is that every culture has values. Every culture has rules of conduct. Every culture has a vocabulary for communication or communicating. Every culture has a methodology, how it does what it does. Every culture has rituals, things it does again and again and again. Every culture has myth and stories to tell. If we consider the Igbo social cultural environment, you will notice that there are things we value. You will look at the rule of conduct, the vocabulary we use in expressing our opinions and points. It's unique for all cultures. And the rituals we perform, the myth and the stories around our society. Now let's talk about avenues to root entrepreneurial culture. When we say to root entrepreneurial culture, we mean how can we get entrepreneurial culture rooted in our society or in an environment? What are the avenues to root entrepreneurial culture? Entrepreneurial culture can be rooted in a society through four main avenues. The first is the family. In the family, with the family, you can create all kinds of entrepreneurial culture within the members of that family. Through education, that's number two. Through education, entrepreneurial culture is established like we are studying now. You can study to become entrepreneur. Number three is the existing business organizations in an environment. You know, when you grow up with business organizations all around you, it has a way of affecting you. Another way of entrenching or rooting entrepreneurial culture that's number four, through local and national authorities and leaders. Of course, you know, with local and national authorities, so many programs can be initiated, so many activities can be initiated to create that sense of entrepreneurship in the environment. Now, let's talk about the difficulties facing faced in establishing an entrepreneurial culture. The first is ignorance, where people fail to capture the important role of entrepreneurship, for instance, in poverty alleviation. The ignorance thereof can be a difficulty because it will block the establishment of entrepreneurial culture. Number two is laziness. For example, in communities who have got used to being assisted. Now, some local communities have been assisted again and again by the federal government, by the local government, and because of that, over time, they can't see opportunities and exploit it. You see that? So these are difficult. These are some of the difficulties. Laziness is one of the difficulties that can cause establishment of entrepreneurial culture to be hard to establish. The next is fear. When you are risk averse, you're afraid to take a risk. And number four is religious, cultural constraints. Some communities and societies where business and profit making are perceived as being against the culture or religious values. Some people have preached that when you make a lot of profit, it is a sin. And that in itself will hinder the establishment of an entrepreneurship culture in such a place. Okay, now I must appreciate the fact that you have stayed up to this point, and this is about what we are talking about today. Now, in conclusion, therefore, we have talked about culture, and we said culture plays a crucial role in an entrepreneurial venture as it institutionalizes the value of its founders. It helps socialize new employees by guiding them on how to interact with customers, relate to one another, perform their task, and ultimately succeed within the business environment. So culture is a very key concept we talked about today. We talked about theories of entrepreneurship. We started with that, and we listed a whole lot of them. We explained the economic theory, the psychological theories, and the sociological theories. All right, that's about it for today. I don't know if you have questions. If you do, you can unmute yourself and ask, and I will attend to your questions immediately. Do you have questions? Anybody with a question? Okay. Okay, you can ask your question. You can type it. If you have a question, type it. I'll read it. You can unmute yourself and ask it. I will hear you. But if you can't, you can type it. I'm waiting. You can ask your question. If you have a question, I'm waiting. You said you have a question. Type it or unmute yourself and ask the question. Okay, the question says, please can location, weather, climate, or time affect entrepreneurial culture? Now, the question says, can location, weather, climate, or time affect entrepreneurial culture? Can anybody tell us if these things can affect entrepreneurial culture? Can location, weather, or time affect entrepreneurial culture? Can anybody help us with the answer from all we have talked about here today? All right, let me answer your question. Now, remember, we talked about the dimensions of entrepreneurship. We said entrepreneurship in a society can be affected by if the society has this attitude of collectivism or individualism, or if the society is whether the society is operating a high power distance or not, or whether the society is future oriented or not. Now, if you ask a question such as whether entrepreneurship can be affected by location, weather, climate, or time, or that's entrepreneurial culture, I can say yes, it can be affected by location because every society have their unique culture. Okay, every society has their unique culture. Of course, if you train your children in the north and you train children in the south and you train children in the west and you train children in the east, the outcome of their entrepreneurial abilities will be determined where you train them. Some of these regions are more entrepreneurial than the others. So the children will not naturally incline to entrepreneurship if they are in a particular region where entrepreneurship is practiced again and again and again. Like we talked about practicing, not just practicing, like we talked about rooting entrepreneurship. What makes entrepreneurship culture to be established? We said the family, education, the existence of business organization, as well as local and national authorities. So if we have a lot of family members into business in a particular location and you are there, it's going to affect your entrepreneurial culture. If you have entrepreneurship being taught in the school, it's going to affect at least from primary, secondary to higher institution. It will affect your entrepreneurial culture. And if there is a lot of existing businesses in the environment where you find yourself, it's going to affect your entrepreneurial culture. What I think will not affect your entrepreneurial culture is climate, weather climate. All of you can be in the same environment with all these other things, and the weather is changing, is raining, is not raining. That will not be an issue, right? That will not be an issue. Time can also affect your entrepreneurial culture because if you stay in an environment where there are a lot of business for a long time, entrepreneurial culture can be rooted and formed in you. But if you just stay there for a very short period, it may not be formed. That somebody says that means language and behavior is included in it. Language is a very strong element. I think that's what we call it, or components of culture. Remember, we talked about components of culture. Components of culture are value, rules of conduct, vocabulary, methodology, rituals, myth, and story. Vocabulary is language. So component of culture is language. Behavior is how you conduct yourself. That's rules of conduct. It's typical. Let's use the Igbo sociocultural environment as an example. You see, if you go to a typical village in Igbo or in the East, you realize that the people they accept entrepreneurial culture because the people are predominantly business inclined. And the rule of conduct, that's their behavior, is that once they come back for Christmas, any of the men or businessmen that is doing well in his business will attract more boys when he's going back. So young boys that are not apprentices or boys or one boy will want to be an apprentice to the successful businessman that came back. That is the rule of conduct. Then the language, how do we speak? There's how some people speak, the business people speak. Then how those that went to doing white collar jobs speak. And once they know you speak in this particular way, they say, you're a businessman. Once you speak in this particular one, they say this one is on your low Igbo person. So that language is also part of what makes a culture work. And if you are doing a particular kind of business, the kind of language you use to communicate, which people that are not within that business will not understand. So language is also a component of culture in this sense. All right. Okay. Any other question? Any other question? All right. In the absence of any other question, I will call it a day today. Now, I want to appreciate all of you that have taken your time to join. Chinemelum, Emenike, Odile, Nene, Osims, I don't know the other names, Okorie, Uzamaka. The others, I can't see your name, so but I appreciate all of you. Thank you for joining. If you have questions after now, you can send it to the chat group. I will respond to those questions. For the videos, you can watch this back. You can watch it again on YouTube, or I can send you a link to the recording, and you will watch it again. All right. Thank you for joining. Thank you for today. We'll see in class later. Thank you. Bye-bye.